Hello friends, happy Hispanic Heritage Month. I am so excited to be celebrating a very special month that is near and dear to my heart. So for those of you that don't know, I am actually Latina and Hispanic. My dad's family is from Spain and my mom was born in Cuba. It is just so amazing to see so many people and so many organizations and really the world embracing Hispanic culture and celebrating the beautifulness that is the Latino culture. A little bit about me and where I grew up. So like I said, dad's family's from Spain, mom was born in Cuba. My first language was Spanish. So when I was younger, I learned Spanish before I learned English. And if I wanted to talk to my grandparents, my Cuban grandparents, you were talking to them in Spanish. And I spent a lot of time in Miami growing up, which is why I have such a love for it. And anytime I get to go away, I always pick to go to Miami. Love the culture, love the vibes down there. The food is absolutely incredible. So back it up. For those of you that may not have heard, I am now the president owner of Kirkpatrick Partners. Still own Anchored Training, but now I have another business under my belt. Recently got to meet the employees of Kirkpatrick Partners and they asked, where did you get like this drive or this vision to buy a company? It's really risky. To be honest with you, if I think back to how I've felt over the last year, probably the last year, 6 months to a year, I have started to feel a real shift inside of me that I wanted to be less of an instructional designer and more of an entrepreneur. Like I was learning new things as an entrepreneur, trying to work with systems and teams and, learning about net profit and EBITDA and all of these things. Like that started to really open up a side of me I never really knew that I had. We talk about stories that you tell yourself growing up, these unconscious stories that you don't realize you're telling yourself based on the worlds around you. And for me, growing up, I never saw a female really owning a company or being the CEO. I saw females in position of power, don't get me wrong. I saw females that were like VPs and killing the game. And I thought like that was gonna be my top. The idea of myself taking on that risk and owning the company and being that person to be the breadwinner for the family and the one that, was the business owner. In my mind, it was always the man in the relationship. And even when I made the decision to, leave my full-time job and, just pick up some side stuff here and there, it was so that I was going to be available to take care of my family. Just little by little, I started picking up opportunities and things started coming up where I was more the entrepreneur and taking on a different role, like a business owner role. And I realized I really liked it. Like when I became the accidental agency owner in 2019, that was super fun. Like I really loved that. Thinking through where some of that comes from, I think that hardworking nature and really doing right by, your employer and, your own work and having pride in your work, 1000%. I can attribute that to my dad's side of the family, my grandfather, who's just very big on making sure you got an education, the highest education you could, and really taking pride in ownership and working hard. When I graduated college, I said to my parents, I know that I'm not going into getting like my law degree or I'm not going to go get my master's right now. But I'm telling you, I'm gonna go back for it, which I did. I got my master's a few years later. I just needed a break from it, right? But it was always instilled in me. My grandfather really valued education and I wanted to honor that. So I got my master's, which was really cool because I got to do it online, but then we went to Boston for the graduation and he came. And that was just a really special memory I get to now have of my grandparents. But then when we think about my entrepreneurial spirit, that is 1000% the Cuban side. I didn't tie the two until I sat and thought about it. But hearing stories of my great-grandfather owning a bakery in Cuba up until Castro came over and took it from him, and him being such a successful entrepreneur, I realized this was actually in my blood and I didn't really know or acknowledge or cultivate that for so many years until I was in this opportunity. My grandfather, once he left Cuba to come to the US, he came with my grandmother and my uncles and my mother, and just looking to make a better life for his kids and earn as much as he could. He worked, you know, as a longshoreman in the port, and then eventually ended up owning supermarkets here in Jersey. Really being able to honor that side of myself and realizing that I actually did have it in me. And no, I'm not, you know, a man, but I think I'm doing him pretty proud. And so it's really great to be able to honor my culture in that sort of way, in like a less traditional way than, you know, just all of the amazing traditions that we have. So I definitely can say I attribute being Hispanic and Latina to where I am today in my career. Let's talk about some of my favorite traditions. Hands down, it's definitely food is one of my favorite traditions. I actually asked my husband, real talk, to cut a paella instead of a wedding cake at our wedding, because I'm not a big sweets person, but I am a huge paella person. Spoiler alert, the answer was no, and I will make sure that we share a video from the wedding. Instead, I had paella at our cocktail hour, which I didn't get to eat because who eats at their wedding? But a really fun tradition that we do is we actually, in the Spanish culture, cut our wedding cake with a sword. So for all of our weddings, I think all of our weddings, the cousins anyway, we've all cut our wedding cake with a sword, which is like a very big deal, to make sure that it is brought to each of our weddings so we can cut the cake with it. In terms of my Cuban culture, y'all know your girl loves going to Miami. And I will tell you this, I have a few things that I have to do. Again, this is all food related, but there's a few things that I have to do as soon as I get to Miami. So I land, we're picturing this, right? I land and I have to get a cafecito, a croqueta de jamón, and I need to get a pastelito de guayaba and a medianoche, which is a Cuban sandwich but on sweet bread. Once I have those 4 things, we can continue the trip, but like those are my 4 things that I have to eat immediately. But quite frankly, I just love, you know, being able to spend like a lot of time with my family. And I think the most beautiful thing about the Spanish culture is the amount of time that we spend as a family together, you know, growing up with my cousins, like they were my brothers and sisters, and just really honoring how central truly family is to the culture and to my life. And in tough times, and I just went through quite a tough time this summer, my family was my rock. They showed up in ways that they didn't have to, but they were there, and I'm not gonna cry, but they were there to really support us through some of the most toughest times that we've had so far. It's just such a testament to the culture, as well as, you know, my grandparents that really instilled in us the importance of family. And so I would say, yeah, my favorite tradition besides food is just being able to like spend time with my family. Like literally, that's all I want to do. Just go hang out, eat, and talk with my family. That's it. And then, you know, like when there's a wedding, cut a cake with a sword. That's pretty fun. I would also say a very big tradition, not a tradition, but like a superstition that I have is like my kids all have to have like an azabache, which is like this black stone, which is kind of like our version of the evil eye in the Cuban culture. I need to make sure that my kids have that in their rooms to ward off any evil eyes. So that'd be, I guess, another tradition that's not food and not family. As I look into the future, I think about, particularly as a mother, how I want my kids to be raised and the values I want to ensure that are instilled in them. And I have to say that family values and family culture is the like number one. The beautiful thing about the girls is that they get to be Spanish, Cuban, and Colombian. So they get 3 beautiful cultures that are, you know, represented in every fiber of their being, literally in their DNA. And they get to really see how these 3 beautiful cultures, those similar, are also very different. And I think that's a really great testament to the beauty within our world. While we all have similarities, we have differences that can all be celebrated and that can all be like joined together. They've just been able to grow up with such a loving family around them, and a loving support system, and some really bomb.com food. So if you haven't noticed, the thing that I love the most about the culture is my food. So paellas from Spain, pernil actually from my Cuban culture, and I do love an arepa de chocolo from the Colombian culture. Though it is quite interesting to see like his version of foods versus my versions of food. Mine are better. But anyway, I'm really excited for the girls to have that. But I think also is that as I talked earlier about getting that entrepreneurial spirit from the Cuban side of my family, what was really cute is that this year when I did the like first day of school board for my kids, I asked them what they wanted to be. And Gianna, being her sassy self, goes rich. Okay. And when my husband would not let me write rich, I had to figure out, well, what's another way that we can put that? And you know, they said, well, what about being like mommy, and a business owner? And so I said, okay, well, we can say entrepreneur. That's the proper word. And so they both said they wanted to be an entrepreneur. Actually, at first really said they wanted to be a YouTuber, but then they said, but YouTubers don't make money, and that would just be a fun side project. And I was like, girl, number one, YouTubers can make a lot of money, but you go, girl, recognizing you do need a backup plan to YouTube. Anyhow, so the girls, we want to be entrepreneurs, and I just love that they're getting that sense of seeing, you know, a strong female Latina just owning and trying to dominate a business that is run very male dominated. I think that there's going to be a lot of breaking the glass ceiling and all those cliches that they get to see, but I actually love that my office is in the home. So, you know, while I can get frustrated that it's in the home because it can get loud and sometimes I would love that separation, they also, I think it's really amazing that they get to actually see me work every single day, and they see how hard I work, and they see the filming, and they get to be part of it. You know, sometimes they're in some of our shots and things like that, and so they can see how this all happens, and that you don't just like wake up one day and it happens. Like, they see the grit and the growth that get to come from like working hard. So yeah, I'm really excited that the girls get to see what true entrepreneurship is, and not just like what it is glamorized to be out there in social media. And I attribute that again to my culture and really how I was raised. You know, hard work beats out everything else. Friends, more to come all month on Hispanic Heritage Month, and I cannot wait to share more about my life and the beautiful Hispanic and Latino culture.